On the edge of Willow Creek, where the main street faded into rolling fields, stood a squat red building with peeling paint and a battered brass bell above the door. Most days, people passed the volunteer firehouse without a second glance. The trucks inside were old but polished, the sign out front faded but proud. Willow Creek Volunteer Fire Department serving with heart. Inside, Captain Sam Walker finished his nightly rounds. He checked the hoses, wiped down the engine, and made sure the coffee pot was full for the next shift. Sam was a man of quiet habits, gray at the temples, broad-shouldered, with hands that bore the marks of decades of hard work. He'd led the volunteers for over 15 years, never missing a call, never seeking the spotlight. His crew was a patchwork of neighbors: a high school science teacher, a retired mechanic, a young mother who ran the town's bakery, and a handful of college kids home for the summer. They trained hard, drilled every week, and answered every alarm barn fires, car accidents, flooded basements, and the occasional kitchen blaze. But respect was hard to come by. The city fire department, just 20 miles away, had shiny new trucks, full-time staff, and a budget 10 times Willow Creek's. The city crews called the volunteers weekend warriors. Even the town council treated them like an afterthought. Grant requests were ignored. Equipment was patched and repatched, and the firehouse was last on the list for repairs. Still, Sam and his team showed up. They kept the gear ready, the trucks fueled, and the lights on. They didn't do it for praise. They did it for the town, for each other, and for the hope that, when the worst happened, someone would be there to help. One evening, as Sam locked up, he paused by the wall of photos. In the entryway, black and white snapshots from the 1950s, Polaroids from the 80s, cell phone pictures from last year's 4th of July parade. In every photo, the same spirit shone through. Neighbors helping neighbors, no matter the hour or the weather. Sam smiled, turned off the lights, and stepped into the cool night air. He didn't know that everything was about to change. The next morning, the firehouse buzzed with nervous energy. Word had spread that a city official was coming to inspect the department and discuss regional emergency planning. For weeks, the crew had scrubbed every surface, checked every hose, and rehearsed answers to every possible question. Sam gathered the team for a quick pep talk. "Just be yourselves," he said. "Show him what we do and why it matters." At 10 sharp, a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped Daniel Price, the city's deputy director of emergency services. He was tall, sharp-eyed, and carried a leather folder under one arm. He greeted Sam with a firm handshake and a polite, businesslike smile. Daniel toured the firehouse, asking pointed questions about training, response times, and equipment. He inspected the trucks, checked the gear, and made notes on his clipboard. Sam answered each question with quiet confidence, explaining how they made do with what they had, how they trained with the city crews when they could, and how every member of the team was certified in first aid and rescue. As they walked the halls, Daniel paused in front of the photo wall. One picture caught his eye: a much younger Sam, soot-streaked and smiling, standing in front of a charred house with a small child in his arms. The caption read, "House Fire, Willow Lane, 1998. Daniel's face changed. He stared at the photo. Then at Sam. That was my house, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. That night I was the kid you carried out. Sam blinked, surprised. You were just a little guy. Held onto my neck the whole way out. Daniel nodded, memories flickering in his eyes. I never knew who saved me. I never got to say thank you. For a long moment, neither spoke. The crew watched, sensing something important had happened. Daniel shook Sam's hand, his grip tight. You saved my life. I owe you everything. Daniel finished his inspection, but the tone had shifted. He asked to meet the rest of the crew, listened to their stories, and took notes on what they needed most. Before he left, he told Sam, "I'll be in touch, and thank you for everything." That night, Daniel called his boss and told him the story. The next day, a reporter from the city paper showed up, asking for an interview. Sam was reluctant, but Daniel insisted. "People need to know what you do. They need to remember." The article ran on the front page. Volunteer fire captain saved city official as a child. The story spread quickly. Local news, social media, even the regional TV station. Donations poured in. Local businesses offered support. The town council, suddenly aware of the firehouse's importance, approved long overdue funding for new equipment. But the biggest change was in the community itself. Neighbors stopped by to thank Sam and his crew, sharing stories of fires fought, floods managed, and lives touched. The volunteers were no longer just weekend warriors. They were the heart of Willow Creek. The firehouse became a hub of activity. Kids toured the trucks, families brought food, and the crew trained new volunteers. Sam, ever humble, just smiled and kept working. One evening, as the sun set over Main Street, Daniel returned with his family. He introduced his wife and children to Sam, telling them, "This is the man who made everything possible for us." Sam shook their hands, feeling a lump in his throat. Daniel spoke at the next town meeting, telling the story of the night Sam saved his life. "I owe everything to this man and his team," he said. "Their sacrifice, their courage, their humility, they're what makes this town special." With new funding, the firehouse was renovated. The bell was restored. The trucks got new tires. And the crew received updated gear. A plaque was hung on the entryway in honor of Captain Sam Walker and the Willow Creek volunteer firefighters for service, sacrifice, and the lives they've saved. But Sam's greatest pride was in his crew. He mentored the younger volunteers, teaching them not just how to fight fires, but how to care for people, how to listen, how to comfort, how to lead with humility. He started a new tradition. Every year on the anniversary of the Willow Lane fire, the crew gathered for a quiet dinner. They shared stories, remembered those they'd lost, and welcomed new members to the family. The town's respect for the firehouse only grew. Schools invited Sam to speak about fire safety and courage. Local businesses sponsored fundraisers. The annual 4th of July parade featured the fire trucks at the front, with Sam and his crew waving to cheering crowds. As the years passed, Sam began to think about retirement. He trained his lieutenant, a young woman named Maria, to take his place. On his last day, the town threw a celebration. Daniel, now a leader in the region, gave a speech. Sam Walker taught us that true heroism is quiet, steady, and humble. He showed us that one person's sacrifice can change a life and a whole community. We owe him more than we can ever repay. Sam, standing before his crew and neighbors, felt a deep sense of peace. "We do this because we care," he said. "Not for medals or headlines, but because every life matters." As the sun set, the firehouse bell rang out across Willow Creek, a sound of hope, of gratitude, and of a legacy that would never be forgotten. The seasons turned, and Willow Creek's firehouse became a symbol of pride for the whole town. The once faded building now gleamed with fresh paint, and the new bell restored by local craftsmen rang out for every call and every celebration. The crew grew, with more young volunteers joining to learn from Sam and his team. Maria, Sam's hand-picked successor, brought new energy and ideas, but always honored the traditions Sam had built. Sam didn't just teach firefighting, he taught compassion. He'd remind the crew, when you show up, you're not just saving property. You're saving memories, hopes, sometimes even the heart of a family. He told them stories from his earliest days, the first fire he fought, the first life he saved, and the first time he lost someone despite his best efforts. He never shied away from the hard truths, but he always ended with hope. Maria watched and learned. She saw how Sam comforted children after a fire, how he checked in on elderly, neighbors, and how he remembered every anniversary of every loss. She realized that leadership wasn't just about giving orders. It was about showing up, listening, and carrying the weight of the community with quiet strength. The firehouse became a gathering place. On weekends, families visited for open houses. Kids climbed on the trucks, and Sam led safety demonstrations. Local businesses donated food and supplies, and the crew hosted pancake breakfasts to raise money for equipment. The town council, once indifferent, now attended every event, eager to show their support. Part 6. The final call. One bitterly cold night in January, the alarm rang out a barn fire on the edge of town. Sam, though officially retired, was at the firehouse for a late coffee with Maria. Without hesitation, he suited up and joined the crew. The fire was fierce, whipped by winter winds. Maria led the attack, coordinating the hoses and keeping her team safe. Sam worked the pump, his hands steady even as smoke and sparks filled the air. They saved the barn, the animals, and the farmhouse next door. As dawn broke, the exhausted crew gathered in the snow, faces smeared with soot, eyes shining with pride. Maria turned to Sam. "Couldn't have done it without you, Captain." Sam smiled, feeling the ache in his bones, but also the warmth of a job well done. "You didn't need me. You've got this, Maria. They're lucky to have you." Word of the fire spread, and the town once again rallied around its firehouse. The family whose barn was saved brought hot cocoa and homemade bread. Neighbors stopped by to thank the crew, and the local paper ran a front-page story. Volunteer heroes saved the day again. Part 7. A town changed forever. As the years passed, Willow Creek's firehouse became a beacon for other small towns. Departments from across the region visited to learn from Maria and her team. They wanted to know how a volunteer crew had become. So effective, so respected, and so beloved. Maria always gave credit to Sam. He taught us that every call matters, that every person is worth saving, and that the quietest leaders often leave the deepest mark. Daniel Price, now a respected regional official, never missed a chance to honor the firehouse that had changed his life. He helped secure grants for rural departments. One bitterly cold night in January, the alarm rang out a barn fire on the edge of town. Sam, though officially retired, was at the firehouse for a late coffee with Maria. Without hesitation, he suited up and joined the crew. The fire was fierce, whipped by winter winds. Maria led the attack, coordinating the hoses and keeping her team safe. Sam worked the pump, his hands steady even as smoke and sparks filled the air. They saved the barn, the animals, and the farmhouse next door. As dawn broke, the exhausted crew gathered in the snow, faces smeared with soot, eyes shining with pride. Maria turned to Sam. "Couldn't have done it without you, Captain." Sam smiled, feeling the ache in his bones, but also the warmth of a job well done. "You didn't need me. You've got this, Maria. They're lucky to have you." Word of the fire spread, and the town once again rallied around its firehouse. The family whose barn was saved brought hot cocoa and homemade bread. Neighbors stopped by to thank the crew, and the local paper ran a front-page story. Volunteer heroes saved the day again. As the years passed, Willow Creek's firehouse became a beacon for other small towns. Departments from across the region visited to learn from Maria and her team. They wanted to know how a volunteer crew had become. So effective, so respected, and so beloved. Maria always gave credit to Sam. He taught us that every call matters, that every person is worth saving, and that the quietest leaders often leave the deepest mark. Daniel Price, now a respected regional official, never missed a chance to honor the firehouse that had changed his life. He helped secure grants for rural departments, using Willow Creek as a model of what was possible when a community believed in its own heroes. Sam, now fully retired, spent his days tending a small vegetable garden behind the firehouse. He'd wave to passing kids, offer advice to new recruits, and sometimes sit quietly in the shade, watching the trucks roll out for another call. He was content, knowing he'd left the firehouse and the town in good hands. On the anniversary of the Willow Lane fire, the firehouse held its annual dinner. This time, Sam sat at the head table as an honored guest. Maria gave a speech, her voice steady but full of emotion. Captain Walker showed us what it means to serve. He taught us that courage isn't loud, and sacrifice isn't always seen. Because of him, we know that every life matters, and every act of kindness echoes through time. Daniel stood and added, "I wouldn't be here without Sam, and this town wouldn't be the same." Let's remember that every day is a chance to be someone's hero. The crew raised their glasses, and the bell rang out one clear note for every year Sam had served out. As the evening ended, Sam looked around at the faces, young and old, new and familiar. He realized that his greatest legacy wasn't in the fires he'd fought or the lives he'd saved, but in the spirit he'd helped ignite, a spirit of service, humility, and unwavering care. And as the stars shone over Willow Creek, the firehouse stood as a testament to the truth that sometimes the greatest sacrifices are made quietly, and the deepest respect is earned one life at a time. As time moved on, Sam's legacy continued to shape Willow Creek in ways both visible and unseen. The firehouse, once overlooked, had become the town's gathering point, not just for emergencies, but for celebrations, fundraisers, and moments of grief. Whenever tragedy struck a family or a neighbor needed help, it was the volunteer firefighters who showed up first, often led by Maria, but always guided by the example Sam had set. Maria made it a point to keep Sam's philosophy alive. She introduced service days, where the crew would help elderly residents with chores, teach fire safety at the elementary school, or organize food drives for families in need. These acts of kindness built bridges between the firehouse and every corner of the community. One spring, a devastating flood threatened Willow Creek. The river rose faster than anyone expected, and the town braced for disaster. Maria coordinated with Daniel and the city crews, but it was the volunteers, many of them trained under Sam, who worked through the night, stacking sandbags, evacuating homes, and checking on the most vulnerable. When the waters finally receded, the damage was less than feared. The mayor credited the firehouse for saving dozens of homes. At a town meeting, neighbors stood to share their gratitude. A farmer, his voice shaking, said, "I never thought I'd need help, but when the water came, you were there. You saved more than my house, you saved my hope." Maria, standing beside Sam, replied, "That's what Captain Walker taught us. You don't wait to be asked. You just show up." The children who grew up visiting the firehouse became its next generation of volunteers. Some went off to college or joined city departments, but many returned, eager to serve their hometown. They brought new skills: paramedicine, technology, social media, but always honored the old ways. Respect, humility, and teamwork. Sam, now in his 70s, watched with quiet pride as the firehouse thrived. He mentored new recruits, shared stories over coffee, and attended every graduation and retirement ceremony. He never sought recognition, but the town never let him forget what he meant to them. One summer evening, the town hosted a festival in the firehouse's honor. There were games for kids, a barbecue, and a slideshow of photos from decades of service. Maria presented Sam with a hand-carved plaque for lighting the way. Captain Sam Walker, our forever chief, Sam was moved to tears. In his speech, he said, "This firehouse isn't just bricks and trucks. It's a family, and every one of you is part of it. Thank you for letting me serve." The years rolled on, and Sam grew frail. He spent more time at home, but the firehouse always kept him close. On his last birthday, the crew surprised him with a parade fire trucks, townsfolk, and children waving homemade signs. One crisp autumn night, as leaves turned gold, Sam passed away peacefully. In his sleep, the news spread quickly. The town mourned, but also celebrated a life lived in service. Maria organized a memorial at the firehouse. The bell rang once for every year Sam had served. Daniel gave a eulogy, his voice steady but full of emotion. Sam Walker taught us that heroism is quiet, that leadership is humble, and that the greatest legacy is the lives we touch. The town council declared the firehouse the Captain Sam Walker Station. A new mural was painted Sam in his turnout gear, smiling, surrounded by his crew and the town he loved. Long after Sam's passing, his spirit lived on in Willow Creek. The firehouse remained a beacon, its doors always open, its crew always ready. Maria became a respected chief, known across the region for her calm under pressure and her fierce devotion to her team. Every year, on the anniversary of the Willow Lane fire, the town gathered for a candlelight vigil. They shared stories, remembered those lost, and honored those who served. Children placed flowers at the mural, and new recruits took their oaths in front of Sam's plaque. Daniel, now a senior official, always returned for the vigil. He'd place his hand on the wall and whisper, "Thank you, Sam, for saving my life and for teaching me how to live." As the years passed, the story of the forgotten firehouse and its quiet captain became legend. But for the people of Willow Creek, it was more than a story. It was a promise that service, sacrifice, and love for community would always burn bright, one call, one neighbor, one act of kindness at a time.